The Dynasty running back position is absolute chaos. Here to break it down along with me, top 36 running backs is my buddy Anthony Corrente. I am Matt Hicks, the FF educator. We're going to go groups of six here, highlight some of the most contentious players, some of the most confusing dynasty value. As you're watching along, if you're watching on YouTube here, feel free, drop us a comment, let us know how wrong we are. We legitimately love the discourse back and forth, and go ahead and give the video a like while you're at it here. And are you excited about this? I know you are just thrilled about the state of the running back position right now.
Yeah, it is. It's a mess. It's there's a handful of really great guys, and then they've all got at least something wrong with them after that.
that's that's absolutely correct. But listen, when you're breaking down the top six, that's great, fantastic. Get some insight and advice for a dynasty startup. But championships are won in this range, man.
Yeah.
It's one in the running back 2, running back 3 range. So let's go ahead. Let's get into it here. Our 31 through 36, starting backwards at 36 with Raheem Mostert, Gus Edwards, Jalen Warren, Zach Charbonnet, Tajay Spears, and James Conner. Though it jumps out for me, Ant, is all of these guys, minus Gus Edwards, we're going to talk about one of their teammates later on in the show, right? So all of these guys are dealing with a split backfield. I'm curious to know who jumps out to you out of this group.
I feel strong, right, when it's RB31, but I'm in on James Conner this season. Like, I still think James Conner is going to have a good year. He's the one that, I don't know, Trey Benson being there doesn't work. Not that it doesn't worry me a ton, but I still think Conner retains like the easy lead back value for me this year. And, maybe that changes down the stretch, but I still think Conner retains some nice standalone value this year. The rest of the guys, like, I don't know, it's a little murkier.
I completely agree with that. For me, Conner, I have him at 190 rushing attempts, 900 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. So it's 40% of the market share in Arizona. And I think that's his floor right now. That still gives him pretty good dynasty value as well as seasonal impact. What's great about these rankings, they are our consensus rankings. I think Anthony tends to look a little bit more long-term, and I put a lot of emphasis on that year one impact, right? Or that, immediate this year up impact, I should say. And for James Conner, man, I still think he's going to produce as a top 24 running back. I still think there's a lot of upside. Whereas you look at Zach Charbonnet, you look at Jalen Warren, Raheem Mostert, even to a degree, I think all of those guys need a little bit of help in terms of, maybe their teammate going down and missing some significant time if they're going to have a real impact. But I know I dragged Jalen Warren down in our consensus rankings, and we're going to talk about his teammate Najee Harris a little bit later. So I'll let you make the argument here for Jalen Warren as, a top running back to prioritize maybe in the mid round of a dynasty startup.
Yeah, I like prioritizing Warren in that spot because I really think Najee's still going to be very involved. Najee probably still leads the team in rushing attempts, but I think that Warren could kind of inch closer to that, Alvin Kamara kind of workload. Not that he's the same player, but I still think he could end up with like 170, 180 attempts. And I think Najee will continue to cede receiving work to Jalen Warren. Like, I think Jalen Warren's going to continue to siphon off more of the receiving work there. And he's an explosive player. Like, I just think he's being a little overlooked because he won't have the majority of the rushing market share thanks to Najee. I like him. I really like him more than 30 in the 30s. You know what I mean? I think this year he will be an RB2, but he gets pushed down a little bit.
Yeah, I dragged him down the consensus ranks here. We'll get to that in a little bit. But before we can do that, let's get into 25 through 30. In this range, we're going to have Austin Eckler at 30, Trey Benson at 29, Brian Robinson Jr. at 28, David Montgomery 27, Zamir White 26, and Joe Mixon at 25. I think the first thing that's going to jump out to everybody is we have Brian Robinson Jr. at 28, and we have his new teammate, Austin Eckler, at 30. There's a lot of question marks in terms of what this offense is going to look like. I think you like Brian Robinson a little bit more. I like Austin Eckler a little bit more. So I'll let you lead into the conversation with the argument for Robinson.
Yeah, it's just I'm not gonna abandon hating on Austin Eckler now. I've been poo-pooing Austin Eckler.
Committed.
Yeah. Like you dragged Warren down, I dragged Eckler down. It's I don't know. I trust Brian Robinson getting more of that work right now. More of the traditional rushing work. And I'm not ready to pencil in Austin Eckler as the same Austin Eckler that we've seen over the last handful of years in Los Angeles with Washington. I just think there's more uncertainty there. It's a weird team. Like, I don't know. Is he going to be like the real safety valve for Jaden Daniels, or is Jaden Daniels' rushing ability going to be the real safety valve for Jaden Daniels? And then if we're not getting the same kind of level of receiving work for Eckler, I worry about him like really being able to overtake Robinson as the like pure lead runner there. So they'll both have value, and I think they both kind of cannibalize each other's value a little bit. It'll keep a cap on both of them.
Yeah, I think we do need to proceed realistically. For me, Brian Robinson is just fine.
Yeah.
I think over the first 2 years of his career, he's proved that if he's a high volume guy, he can be really, steady. But I don't know that he's going to be a high volume guy anymore. So when I'm looking at Austin Eckler, I have him at 66 targets still in my projections. I do think he's going to be a key piece of both the running and passing game. And I think what you said is what a lot of folks are holding back on with Austin Eckler, right? You rookie quarterback who scrambles. You think about that check down type work going away.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was studying Jaden Daniels through the rookie process, I talked about this a lot. I thought Daniels showed a high proficiency of comfortability in the pocket. And that was something he really grew in at LSU. So although he absolutely can use his legs, I think he's going to stick in the pocket a decent amount early on, and he's going to use Eckler as a check down option. That is a huge advantage to a rookie quarterback there. So I'm going to lean into my love of Jaden Daniels, my love of his pocket presence and processing ability. And I think it's going to help Austin Eckler. I think if you are if this argument is a good one for you, you should go out and get him. I just traded for him dirt cheap in one league. I mean, pretty much like a future depleted Devy second round pick. I mean, it was, and that wasn't even the whole deal. So, he's pretty cheap right now, and he's definitely somebody who I'm interested in going after. Somebody else in who I still think is a really good value, especially if you're thinking about kicking the tires around in the trade market, or if you go a 0 RB or RB hero through a dynasty startup draft. Zamir White, he's clearly the lead guy for the Raiders now, so he's going to have the volume. When we saw him last season, I thought he was super efficient. I was a huge fan of his rookie profile coming out, so I think he's waited his time, and I think he's going to get a shot to go over 1,000 yards, over 900 yards with the Raiders this season. Am I totally, out of bounds here? Am I hyped for Zamir White?
I don't think so. It feels like consensus hasn't really quite caught up to that he's going to be the guy there. You know what I mean? It just feels overlooked. And I don't know if it's because we're talking about Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, but like whoever is under center, like somebody's still going to get rushing work. And I'm not worried about Alexander Madison or anybody else that's there. So I think Zamir White, I agree. I think he'll be the guy. It just feels like we're due for draft him now, because the uptick in price tag is probably coming later this summer when, preseason and training camp are in the books. I bet that changes a bit.
Yeah, there's always a wake-up point in late July, first week of August, where people start actually looking at depth charts and being like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Is Dylan Laube and Alexander Madison really taking work away from Zamir White? Probably not, right? Probably not. All right, let's go ahead. Let's jump into our next group of running backs here. And rookie alert here. This is where we're going to start getting some of those top rookie names from this last draft class. 24, we have Ramondre Stevenson. 23, Aaron Jones, now with the Vikings. Blake Corum with the Los Angeles Rams. Josh Jacobs at 21, now with the Green Bay Packers. Javonte Williams for the Broncos at 20, and Jonathan Brooks at 19 for the Carolina Panthers. I think it's worth starting a discussion here with Brooks and Corum. Now, obviously, we've talked about these guys a lot through the rookie process, but now it's time to actually translate that into relative dynasty value. Most years, you're not very happy if your top rookie running backs are coming in at 19 and 22 in the dynasty rankings. But I think that's the reality of looking at both of these guys with upside, but also some real limitations, especially early on in their careers.
Yeah, like the limitation for Corum is he's sharing the backfield, and the limitation for Brooks is he's in Carolina. Uh,
Yes. And injured, and injured.
and injured, and was kind of I know a lot of people loved Brooks as the top guy in this class, but I don't know. I don't think I quite saw it, totally the same. I think he's a fine player, but the injury worries me, and it's a whole situation that we got to see get better before we can really comfortably project it getting better, I think. But yeah, I think Corum is sneaky value. I think Corum is going to get more year one value or more year one production than is really being talked about. I still like, Kyron's great, but they liked Kyron so much that they got Blake Corum. Similar player.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think folks are too locked into the idea of like McVay runs running backs to the ground, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
an innovative coach. Like
Yeah.
he is known for, especially in the defensive side, changing personnel or the offensive line. He had a huge revolution on that side of things. I think he understands the situation he got himself into last year, where he was signing guys off the street
Mm-hmm.
as they were trying to push for a playoff run, right? Like this it's important for McVay to have not just a backup running back, but a true rotational runner. And when you see that they didn't draft a complimentary back, they drafted a rotational back. I mean, he really mirrors the way that
Yeah.
Kyron Williams wins. And so I think Corum's going to get plenty of his, even if both of these guys stay healthy. But if Kyron Williams goes down with injury, even if he misses a month, like Corum's value is just going to absolutely skyrocket. And if you're looking long term at a guy in this range, right? You should be looking at somebody who you can have a reasonable path to upside with. And Blake Corum definitely gives you that. Now, you're not really going to have a long-term value shot here with either Aaron Jones or Josh Jacobs. I think if you're rostering either of these guys, you're looking for an immediate impact. You're looking for 2024 production, looking to push the chips over, maybe on a championship push here. But and very similar projection lines for these two guys for me. Veterans cut that are, a little bit later into their career. A lot of similarities. If you were to choose one of these two guys for your roster this season, is there one that stands out to you as more of a enthusiastic selection?
I think I value them pretty closely. I think if I was going to like pound the table for one out of the two, it's probably Jacobs, because I think he gets the more like easy to project work like for the first half of the season. I think we agree that JJ McCarthy probably gets the majority of the season for Minnesota, and I think Aaron Jones is an excellent you know, safety valve for him, and as a runner or a receiver can do a little bit of everything. But I think Green Bay, with Jordan Love, with the weapons that they have on the outside, I think Josh Jacobs will be able to get off to a good start. I do wonder if it tails off down the stretch, or if he starts to like seed work to Marshawn Lloyd eventually. But I think early on, I would take Jacobs. I love them both though on a contender. I really do.
Absolutely. I think, if you're on a contender, either one of these guys, if you can trade a 25 second to get
Yeah.
them, that's kind of the range you're looking for. I have no problem doing that. Just understand, you're not doing that on a rebuild, right? If you're on a
Right.
rebuild and you have one of these guys, you should be trading them for a future 2025 pick. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a real kind of depends on where you're at competition wise. All right, we're going to transition here to 18 through 13. But before we do that, want to make sure folks know about the fantastic resources we have available over at patreon.com/rookie big board, including our full in-depth dynasty rankings for every position. There is the Dynasty Big Board rankings, which are directly comparable to 2024 and 2025 rookie rankings, as well as Devy rankings. So you can compare a true freshman in college, their value to the current value of Aaron Jones, who we just talked about. But we also have Anthony's Dynasty rankings available as well. So you can kind of get a full picture of our consensus rankings, including articles breaking down those rankings. So much good stuff. And I haven't even talked about the Rookie Big Board Discord, where you can get personalized advice. If you're rebuilding that Dynasty roster, if you got a Dynasty startup coming along, you need that personalized insight and advice to help you win the championship. No better spot than heading on over to patreon.com/rookieBigBoard. Everything I just talked about and so much more, including 2024 seasonal projections, available for just $5 a month. You got to head on over to patreon.com/rookieBigBoard. All right, let's get into the top half of our rankings here. This is where things are going to start to get juicy, and I like this range of guys. This feels like the steady veterans, the guys you can rely on, the future, or I should say the past stars, right? Maybe they're not shining as bright as they used to, but they all still have a lot to give here. So at 18, you have Tony Pollard, now with the Titans, Isaiah Pacheco at 17, Najee Harris at 16, DeAndre Swift at 15, Derrick Henry at 14, and Alvin Kamara at 13. Now, I got to tell you, the top two guys here, Kamara and Henry, on my contenders, I have been trading for these guys a ton this offseason. Like, I think they're both screaming values. They both project as top 8 running backs in my seasonal projections. I mean, you look at Henry, I think there's just this assumption that he's lost a step, but nothing we've seen on tape has showed us that. He's now playing behind the Baltimore Ravens offensive line, which is literally a dream. And then Alvin Kamara went out there last year and just putting together another running back one season, and it seems like nobody cares. If you're looking at these two guys, Ant, which one are you preferencing?
I agree. I love them both. I want them. I will go trade for them as many times as possible on a contender, because if I have to take one, it's Kamara, like just barely. Because I agree. I think he could be probably had a little bit cheaper than Henry sometimes, because people have, I'm not sure why, but run with this narrative that Kendre Miller is going to take all this work away from Alvin Kamara. And I simply do not understand why or where this has come from. Like you said, Kamara.
That's called take lock. That is called take lock.
Alvin Kamara, what did he miss? 2 or 3 games to start the season last year, and then just came back and was Alvin Kamara.
Is Kendre Miller still on the roster? Like,
has Kendre Miller done anything to make us think that he should take work away from Alvin Kamara, who has been excellent for his entire career? Stop it. Kendre Miller, not good at football. Alvin Kamara, good at football.
Very good.
Not that hard. It's very good at football. If I can have either of them for like a 2025 second, I'm like smash doing it. On a contender where I'm like a running back away, I'm honestly even fine trading a late first if it gets me Kamara or Henry for this season, and I'm like one big piece away from pushing me to win a championship. I'm fine trading a late first for him.
That pick's going to be 110, 111, 112. Like,
who cares?
We are the lovers of rookies here, and it's shaping up to be a good class. We got other videos previewing the class, but 110, 111, 112 to get a top 8 running back. Yeah. Okay. We're going to do that
every time.
Yep. The other guy we talked about, I alluded to him earlier. We were talking about Jaylen Warren. So I want to talk about Najee Harris here, because talk about the absolute disrespect. And let me tell you, we were talking about the Rookie Big Board Discord. I think the patrons are just messing with me at this point, because we have a conversation about Najee Harris, I swear, once a week. And it's just slander. It's just slander. But there is a reason I love putting out the projections, right, for myself and all the Rookie Big Board patrons, because you plug it into the spreadsheet, man. And I still have Najee Harris at 240 rushing attempts. That's even giving Jaylen Warren 30% of the rushing share, right? Like, give Jaylen Warren plenty. Give Jaylen Warren 10% of the reception share. That still leaves 43 targets over for Najee Harris. That still leaves 9 combined touchdowns for Najee Harris. He could still easily push over 1,000 yards. I project him closer to 1,100 yards this year. I mean, he's simply going to be a running back one until further notice. And I think 16, if you looked at most people's rankings, he's probably lower. I'm pulling him up in these
You are. Yeah,
rankings.
you are pulling you are pulling him up. Yeah, I'm looking where I have him now. I probably need to move him up a little bit, honestly. It must have been a bad day when I ranked Najee, but he's like a real I don't mean this is gonna sound more disrespectful than I mean it, but
Yikes.
it's not he's just not as exciting as some other guys,
You know what's
and, like, he's
exciting for me?
fine.
Running back one seasons. Simply.
Yeah, in that
Simply,
regard,
I'm
he's totally
interested.
fine. He's totally fine. But, you talk yourself into something with a little more sizzle. But yeah, take your medicine, draft Najee Harris. He's gonna be fine. He's
Take your medicine, draft Najee Harris. Let's put it on a shirt here.
yeah.
All right. Let's get into our running back ones, our top 12 running backs here. Starting with number 12, James Cook, 11, Kyron Williams, 10, Devin Achane, 9, Kenneth Walker, 8, our guy, Rashad White, and
Let's go.
7, Travis Etienne. We got to start with James Cook. And the reason we got to start with James Cook is because you were significantly higher than me on James Cook.
I
And
know.
I want to hear your argument here because I want to love the way I want to love James Cook in the way that you love James Cook. I truly do. But there's just something there where I just can't get there, man. I don't trust the volume will be there, especially with Ray Davis in town now.
Yeah, that is definitely the fly in the ointment, right? Like Ray Davis is a threat for sure, but I think Cook was really good last year, like all around. And I think that he'll probably have to continue to be a pretty consistent receiving threat there. Like I can't reasonably pencil in love Keon Coleman, but I'm not going to pencil in like a huge year for Keon Coleman this year. Love Dalton
How
Kincaid,
dare you?
but like I think Cook's going to get a lot of receiving work, and I think he's still going to get the lion's share of the rushing work. And yeah, I am higher on I would flip the same question to you. Why do you hate James Cook so much?
I'm looking at my projections here, and I have James Cook as running back 11 in my projections. I just I think long term, I think it's partly my love for Ray Davis. I think
Yeah.
Davis is gonna get in there and get in the mix. And what I'm most concerned about is the goal line touches. I think we could be looking at three touchdowns on the ground for James Cook. Because I
Mhm.
think if they get inside the 10, man, it's Ray Davis all day because he smashed at the goal line at college. You have to think that's one of the reasons they drafted him. So I think you're relying a lot on that PPR upside of James Cook. And if you're playing in a full PPR, that's even more exciting. Maybe if you're playing in a half PPR, you drop him down a couple slots there. But the other guy, man, which I know we don't disagree on, is Rashad White. Rashad White, who finished as running back 3 in PPR formats last year, and literally nobody cares. He's coming
Nobody.
in at running back 8, and I promise we're going to get comments on this video telling us that we are too high on Rashad White. But if you look at the numbers, man, the math, it's just mathing here. You look at this backfield and you have what? Bucky Irving. I'm sorry, folks. Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker,
Yeah.
two fantasy, Debbie darlings from the last 2 years. That's still leaving at least 50% of the work on the ground for Rashad White. 225 rushing attempts in my projection, 6 touchdowns, over 900 yards, and then another 450 receiving yards and 55 receptions in my projections in the passing game. You know what Rashad White feels like? And we talked about him earlier, but like early career Alvin Kamara. Remember,
Yeah.
it took like 3 years for people to really believe that Alvin Kamara was going to keep the value.
Yeah.
Like that's what it feels like for Rashad White for me right now.
Yeah, and as somebody who at one point, caped and stand hard for Sean Tucker, we simply do not care about Sean Tucker anymore. Like this
Who?
is the
Who?
Rashad White show. Like I kind of feel like this about Tampa Bay in general. Like Tampa Bay put their foot down and just said, "We're gonna run this thing back." Like, right,
Yeah, man.
we're gonna do this team again. And so everybody that I really liked last year on Tampa Bay, yeah, same, ditto again, because we're doing the same thing. I have no reason to believe that Rashad White's numbers should change. If anybody is still like late to catch it, catching up on, like, is Rachaad White this good? Is it sustainable? Rachaad White was that year. What was that? 2 years ago he got drafted,
Yep.
right? 2 years ago.
Going into his third year.
Easily the best pass catching back in the
Oh,
class that year. Wasn't even close.
yep.
Was not even close. And I remember saying before that draft that, like, there was a level of, like, Le'Veon Bell type upside with Rachaad
Oof.
White from what he
Oof.
can do as a runner and a receiver. So, and anybody who wants to come on here and say we're too high on Rachaad White, I would simply say no, we are not. I hope that by the end of the season we're talking about him even higher. I love that player.
It's simply too good.
He will not be denied. What is there to not like? Like, I don't know why people. It
Do not.
really is like the production's there, the opportunity's there, but people have just decided, like, nah, it's not going to happen again this year.
Hey man, more for us, more
We'll
for
take
us
them.
out there, more for the listeners, more for the viewers here. All right, let's get into our studs, our top 6 guys. You know, we mentioned the running back position, it's in chaos. You don't feel great about a lot
Yeah.
of these guys that you're drafting. You see the wide receivers and the quarterbacks in Superflex Dynasty startups fly off the board early. It takes a lot to get to those running backs, but I'd say these 6 guys, you know, they're pretty, you know, they're pretty steady. You feel good about the
Yeah.
production you're going to get from them. Starting here at number 6, Jonathan Taylor, 5, Saquon Barkley, now with the Eagles, Christian McCaffrey at 4, Jahmyr Gibbs at 3, Breece Hall at 2, and Bijan Robinson at 1. We agreed with our top 2. We were consensus on Bijan and Breece Hall at the top. So, you know, between those 2 guys, and you feel good about, you know, I know Bijan had a good rookie season. I think it's better than a lot of folks gave him credit for.
It
And then, of
is.
course, we've seen running back 1 potential from Breece Hall. You trust Bijan to be the dude? Like, if you're drafting a running back first, you're going to take Bijan over Breece Hall how many times out of 10?
Probably like 7 out of
7 out of
10.
10. That feels right.
Yeah, like, I'll sprinkle in some Breece because, Homer. But I don't know. Bijan was a superior prospect to Breece. Like, Bijan and Breece kind of find themselves in pretty similar situations, though. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
veteran quarterbacks, they should all, like, both get a ton of work. I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the year they finished, like, very similarly stat wise. Would not shock me at all. So 7 out of 10 times I'll take Bijan, but shout out Breece. Mix him in there.
Yeah, I like that. You know, the thing with Breece Hall, and it's so funny, he's just always there. You know,
Yeah.
again, like one of the reasons I love the projections is quite honestly, and I know this isn't fair, but like I see Breece Hall like in a queue, and I don't get that excited about him. I don't know what it is about Breece Hall. He's always been good. And he's always produced when he was healthy. So there's nothing to justify that feeling. But again, like that's why I'm so big on put it into a spreadsheet because man, there's no way to move around the Jets offense with 98-year-old vice presidential candidate Aaron Rodgers. You know, and there's just no way to believe that the running game isn't going to be absolutely critical to their success. With Atlanta, you could imagine up a way for them to just pass their way through the season. But the great thing about Bijan is that he is a critical part of the passing game as well. We up those touchdowns, we get that consistent volume, and I think he could be, CMC level runaway with the type of production, right? And then you get to, I think 3-4 is the other discussion that I want to have here. Because you have Jahmyr Gibbs and you have Christian McCaffrey, and we flipped these guys in our rankings. We mixed it up between them. I think what I love, I'm going to take that guaranteed, and obviously there's no guarantees in fantasy football, but I'm going to take that near guaranteed value in Christian McCaffrey every single time, even if it's only 2 or 3 years out of him. And I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, I was super high on him coming out as a rookie, and he had a fantastic rookie season. But isn't it always just in the back of your head, just a little bit like, man, would it shock you if Dan Campbell just did something weird and just like forgot about him for 3 weeks?
Yeah.
There's so much steadiness with Christian McCaffrey that I'm drafting him, I think, earlier than most folks.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with however you want to put those 2 guys. Like these 4, these are the 4, right? Like, and then Saquon, Jonathan Taylor after that. But these four guys are the four that I feel really good about. The four that I'd go as far to, trade multiple firsts for if I was really trying to get a star level running back on my dynasty team. Christian McCaffrey definitely gets the benefit of the doubt of being, Christian McCaffrey until further notice, right? Like, he's great until he's not. So I wouldn't argue with anybody that wanted to take him anywhere in the top four. But I think you'll see Gibbs probably go ahead of him more often than not, right, wrong, or otherwise. It's definitely riskier. And I don't know if the upside's really any different. So I think, taking McCaffrey ahead of Gibbs is fine. I don't think anybody should freak out about it. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all. The other thing with Detroit is, like, you do have to bank on them or hope that they continue to split the work appropriately, right?
Yeah.
Because David
Yeah.
Montgomery's not going away. Let
Right.
David Montgomery have 13 touchdowns last year. Like,
Yeah. It's crazy.
he's going to continue to be there.
Yeah.
And I think they can coexist fine. But that's the one thing. Like, McCaffrey, who's he fending off? Mid-round rookies and UDFAs. Like, it's
Cody Schrader, baby.
Yeah, Cody Schrader.
Taking CMC's job.
Isaac
You heard it here first.
Barrendo.
Yeah, heard it here first. Last note here on these top guys. I just want to make a point here. I feel like folks are way too in their head about Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
Like, I can't emphasize enough, folks, that he was such a consistent, when he was healthy, such a consistent top 6 running back behind the worst offensive line in an offense where everybody knew he was getting the ball. All right. So now you put a lot of talented playmakers who can open up the field around Saquon Barkley. He's going to have over 250 touches. Don't overthink the fact that Jalen Hurts, has a ton of rushing touchdowns. Why do you think Jalen Hurts was getting the ball in the red zone so much? Because their running backs were Kenneth Gainwell, Rashad Penny, and Boston Scott. Like, what? Of course, Saquon Barkley is going to get some of those rushing touchdowns. Like, get out of your head. What are we doing here, man? Like,
I would be more in my head over Jalen Hurts than Saquon Barkley. You know what I mean? Like, it hurts, no pun intended. It hurts more than it hurts Barkley. From a rushing perspective, I think for sure. Like, he is going to lose rushing touchdowns to Saquon Barkley. Like, they wouldn't have went out and paid Saquon Barkley otherwise. Like, they simply would not have.
Absolutely.
Also, like, so much of that rushing production for Hurts was tush push.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know that we're getting that same amount of tush push with Saquon Barkley there.
And with Jason Kelce gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's a running back that we did not talk about, either we just didn't cover them, they were listed in our top 36, or they got snubbed from our top 36, you want to know about them, ask the question in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube here, we would love to see it. We would love to see you drop that like as well. And we would love to see you over in the Rookie Big Board Discord. You can get in there as well as get our seasonal projections, our individual dynasty rankings for all the positions, and so much more over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard.